Steffi's first conscious moment after surgery was more confusion than relief. Cool sheets against her skin, the sterile scent of medical ether lingering in her nostrils, and a disorienting void where her memories once lived. She blinked against the harsh overhead light, trying to piece together the fragments of her last recollection, but her mind slipped through her grasp like water. A soft voice soothed her. "Easy now, darling. You're safe." The voice belonged to someone unfamiliar, tender, almost maternal, and yet there was something unsettling in its intimacy. "Who are you?" Steffy croaked, and the stranger, introduced as Sheila, pressed a gentle hand to her arm. "I'm your friend," she whispered. "I've been here for you." Steffy tried to recall the past 5 years, her marriage to Finn, the birth of their child, the countless shared moments, but found only darkness. In that void, Sheila's presence filled the emptiness. She brought warm tea in delicate china cups, arranged soft pillows behind Steffi's back, and recounted stories of heartbreak that Steffy felt viscerally true. "You lost so much," Sheila would murmur as she brushed a strand of hair from Steffi's forehead. "They lied to you. They kept secrets." With each whispered confession, a wedge drove between Steffy and the face of her husband, handsome, caring Finn, who stood at her bedside day after day, his eyes brimming with relief and love. But Steffy could not remember his name, nor the way his presence made her heart surge. Instead, she recoiled when she saw him, convinced that the man before her was an interloper. Driven by a desperate yearning for a love she could not recall, Steffy clung to the memory of someone named Liam, whose name floated at the edges of her mind like a shimmering promise, and imagined him trudging through stormy nights to rescue her. "You loved Liam," Sheila coaxed, "not this stranger." Doubt gnawed at Steffi's resolve, and though she recognized the gentle firmness in Finn's voice, she could not trust the stranger who called herself friend. Meanwhile, Finn battled demons of his own. In the sterile corridors where Florence lights blazed overhead, he fought the cravings that had nearly cost him everything he cherished. Each morning he rose, wrists trembling, determined to prove his worth to Steffi even as the phantom ache of withdrawal shadowed his every step. He clung to the hope that, if Steffi could remember their love, it would anchor him to sobriety. But as she retreated from him, eyes averted, voice cool, his heart cracked in two. His mother, Sheila, whom he had once hoped to leave behind in a haze of past betrayals, had returned not only to haunt him, but to steal the woman he loved. In the gilded hospital room where Steffi lay oscillating between truth and deception, Sheila reigned as confidant and savior, manipulating every detail of Steffi's fragmented mind. She recounted stories of lies told by the Forresters, of decisions made without Steffi's knowledge, of a daughter-in-law who had been cast aside, and Steffi, desperate to reclaim her identity, absorbed every word as gospel. When Finn tried to speak her name, her eyes glossed with fear and she flinched. When he brought her flowers, she brushed them aside, insisting that Liam would have done better. And when she asked why they had let her slip away, Sheila's soft voice answered, "They wanted to protect you from the truth." In the halls outside, Finn wrestled with guilt for his mother's transgressions and anguish for his wife's suffering. He sought guidance from Ridge and Taylor, begging them to reveal Sheila's manipulation, but they cautioned patience. Steffi's memory might return only when the right spark ignited her recollection. He even turned to Hope, whose empathy for his plight rivaled her own grief over old rivalries. She provided him with photographs of happier days, videos of their wedding, and recordings of their laughter, tokens of a life Steffi could not yet reclaim. Yet every attempt to reawaken her memories seemed to backfire, pushing her deeper into the protective orbit Sheila had spun around her. Sheila herself watched Finn's struggles with a complex blend of triumph and sorrow. She had loved her son fiercely, and though her own actions had estranged them, she believed she had atoned by saving Steffi's life. "I did this for you," she argued, confronting Finn in a quiet corner of the hospital chapel. Finn, shoulders hunched and eyes haunted, met his mother's gaze with both pain and defiance. By lying to her? By turning her against me? You've hurt us more than you've helped. Sheila's lips trembled. For a moment, maternal regret flickered in her eyes, only to be snuffed out by steely resolve. I gave her purpose, something to fight for. As Steffy lay between them, her mind a battleground of conflicting loyalties, Finn realized he must wage his own campaign for her heart. He enlisted the help of Dr. Buckingham to guide Steffy through memory exercises. Trips to the beach where they once walked hand in hand, visits to the nursery where their baby slept, and evenings spent in the old Forrester barn where they had danced under fairy lights. At first, each outing left Steffy bewildered, yet sometimes, late at night, she would awaken in a panic, whispers of a song, "Everything I do it for you," echoing at the edge of her consciousness. Those fleeting moments, like embers glowing in ash, gave Finn a sliver of hope. He would tuck her in, trace her wrist where his pulse beat steady and warm, and whisper, "I'm here, always." Gradually, cracks formed in the wall of amnesia. A photograph of her mother, Taylor, brought a flash of recognition. The lullaby Finn sang to their child evoked a tremor of longing in her voice. Each flicker of memory, though painful and incomplete, threatened Sheila's carefully cultivated narrative. Realizing her grip was slipping, Sheila intensified her efforts. She intercepted Finn's notes, disguised as caring reminders, and replaced them with cryptic warnings. She portrayed Taylor's concern as meddling and Ridge's offers of support as conspiracies to isolate Steffy from the one person who truly loved her. And always she sat at Steffy's bedside, murmuring confidences that drew the traumatized woman deeper into her sway. But as the boundary between truth and deception blurred, Steffy began to feel torn by the undercurrent of conflicting emotions stirring within her. On a rainy afternoon, as thunder rumbled over Los Angeles, Finn found Steffy alone in the garden courtyard, staring at a swing where they had carved their initials. He approached cautiously, hands in his pockets, rain pattering on his shoulders. "Do you ever feel like someone else has been telling you who you are?" he asked quietly. Steffy lowered her gaze, lashes wet with tears, perhaps from the rain, perhaps from something deeper. "I don't know anymore," she admitted, voice cracking. "I feel like I'm split in two." Finn knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "You're stronger than this," he vowed. "I will fight for you every day." At that moment, the door to the courtyard opened and Sheila stepped out, umbrella in hand, her expression calculating. "Steffy, darling, you shouldn't be out here," she said, stepping between them. Finn rose, fists clenching. "Why don't you let her decide for herself?" he challenged. Sheila's lip curled. "Because I'm the only one who knows what's best for her." As rain sluiced around them, the showdown crystallized. Finn, representing the true love and shared history Steffy could scarcely remember, and Sheila, wielding the twisted affection of a mother who believed manipulation was redemption. In the thunder's echo, Steffy closed her eyes and summoned a fleeting memory of laughter in a sunlit meadow, a memory that belonged to neither Finn nor Liam, but to herself. Opening her eyes, she looked at Finn, recognition dawning like the first light of morning. I remember your voice," she whispered. Sheila's face flickered with panic as her carefully woven web unraveled. Finn exhaled a breath he'd been holding, and gently guided Steffy into his arms. Sheila recoiled, her plan shattered, and as lightning cleaved the sky, she realized that the one bond she could never manipulate was the one forged in true love and shared sacrifice. In that storm-lashed courtyard, as Finn held Steffy's trembling form, the fragile threads of memory began to restore her sense of self. Sheila's influence dissolved in the face of a love that no lie could sever, and though the road ahead would be fraught with healing and forgiveness, Steffy knew one immutable truth: her heart belonged with Finn, and no amount of deception could steal that away. Hope Logan's world had shattered into 1,000 jagged fragments the moment Liam lay immobile in the hospital bed, tubes in his arms, eyes flickering with confusion as he drifted in and out of sedation. And with his fragile mind teetering on the brink of collapse, Hope found herself paralyzed by a terror she could scarcely admit even to herself, that Bill Spencer, his ruthless father, would swoop down like a vulture to seize custody of little Beth, using the court of public opinion to sanitize his family's reputation even as he tore hers apart. In the hushed corridors of Forrester Creations, Hope's footsteps echoed like gunshots, each one a reminder of the stakes. Not only her daughter's future, but the fate of Hope for the future, the nascent fashion line she had poured her heart into, teetering on the edge of corporate subsumption. Beneath the glaring chandeliers of Ridge Forrester's private office, Hope laid out her plea in trembling tones, her eyes rimmed red, and made a proposition that cut through decades of rivalry and pride. Ridge would stand by her in court and testify to the truth of Bill Spencer's erratic, self-destructive lifestyle, detailing late-night benders, fired staff members, and the litany of scandals that the tabloids had barely scratched the surface of, and in return, Hope would transfer 25% of her company's shares to the Forrester family, guaranteeing their influence over the brand's future. Ridge, conservative and steadfast, hesitated only for a heartbeat before the weight of his daughter's desperation and his own sense of justice stilled any objections. He clasped Hope's hand and swore an oath. He would take the stand and expose Bill's darker side, no matter the cost to his own legacy. Thus did a private family dispute morph into a gladiatorial spectacle in the heart of Los Angeles's highest-profile courtroom, each side parading its champions and secrets in a deadly dance of legal brinkmanship and media manipulation that felt more catwalk week than custody hearing. On one side stood Bill Spencer Jr. Handsome in his tailored suits, the very picture of power and control, flanked by his cadre of high-priced attorneys and escorted by paparazzi eager to catch a glimpse of his defiant glare. He arrived each morning with Beth cradled in his arms, her little head nestled against his shoulder, casting large, soulful eyes at the banks of photographers who called her both victim and prop. Bill's strategy was twofold. He would paint Hope as an unstable young mother, drained by grief and unable to provide the consistency Beth needed, and he'd leverage his family's media empire to ensure that every news cycle echoed his narrative of redemption, that through him, Beth would reclaim the Spencer name and its prestige. Across the aisle, Hope sat rigidly beside Liam's temporary guardian, Steffy, eyes haunted by her own recent ordeal, her husband's hospital bed a silent witness to the chaos that followed him even here. Hope for the Future banners draped the walls behind their side of the courtroom, each logo a stark reminder of what was at stake beyond mere parenthood, a multi-million-dollar brand that embodied Hope's dreams, now under threat of dilution or outright takeover by Spencer Publications if Bill emerged victorious. Cameras whirred, lights flashed, and social media erupted with hashtags like #SaveBeth and #SpencerWatch, turning the legal process into a primetime event that blurred the lines between justice and entertainment. The week-long trial unfolded like an elaborate fashion show, each witness strutting forward under the glare of cross-examination. First came the nannies, hushed voices testifying tonight's Bill had vanished, leaving Beth in the care of rotating staff. To cell phone records showing erratic texts at 3 a.m, to accounts of outbursts in the nursery that left baby Beth startled and confused. Then Hope's character witnesses, designer allies and modeling mentors, stepped up to paint a picture of a young mother whose love for Beth was limitless, whose vision for Hope for the future was poised to elevate the Forrester crest to new heights. All the while, Hope sat with her hand pressed to her heart, glancing at a photo of Liam and Beth taped inside the front cover of her legal pad, refusing to let herself break even as the trial's relentless pace threatened to consume her. But it was Ridge's turn on the stand that brought the courtroom to its feet. The judge, stern, salt-and-pepper-haired Judge Palmer, banged her gavel and called the session to order as Ridge rose, sleek in a midnight blue Forester suit, his voice calm but resonant as he recounted the litany of Bill's transgressions. The night Bill had stormed into their board meeting drunk, nearly collapsing the deal that saved Hope for the future's first runway show. The whispers of an insider trading tip Bill had ignored for personal gain, the late-night phone calls, some of which Ridge himself had answered, in which Bill's fury crackled through the receiver. Ridge's testimony shattered the facade of Bill Spencer Jr.'s immaculate image, and for the first time, Hope dared to inhale without the taste of terror in her lungs. But Bill's attorneys, masters of spin, were ready. Their cross-examination was surgical, slicing through Ridge's statements with insinuations of Forester nepotism, of bias, of a vendetta against the Spencer name dating back decades. They dredged up old grudges. Eric Forrester's ruthless boardroom tactics, Ridge's own marital upheavals, casting a pall of hypocrisy over his testimony. Hope watched her father's gaze falter just once, a flicker of doubt that took her breath away. As witness after witness took the stand, the courtroom became a battlefield on which reputations and relationships were laid bare. Liam, confined to his hospital bed, was called via closed-circuit feed, his voice weak but determined as he insisted on his daughter's best interests. That custody should remain with her mother Hope, the only constant love in her life. The image of Liam, frail yet resolute, speaking into a courtroom microphone from his hospital room, brought many to tears, and the judge's stern expression softened for the briefest moment. Bill, never one to be outmaneuvered, waited until Hope took the stand herself, her voice trembling at first as she recounted nights she had cried herself to sleep, overwhelmed by the burden of running a brand while battling her father-in-law's manipulations and her husband's health crisis. She confessed to tears in the nursery, to fears that she would fail her daughter, to the hollow ache of watching Beth reach instinctively for Liam's embrace even as Liam lay unconscious. Then she looked directly at Bill across the aisle, her eyes blazing. "You want to save the Spencer name," she said, voice steady now. "What about saving my daughter? What about saving my family? I'm not a brand to be leveraged. I'm her mother." There was a hush as the words echoed in the cavernous room, and for a moment Hope saw in Bill's eyes a flicker of something, regret, perhaps, or the faint shadow of the man he once aspired to be before power consumed him. But the moment passed, replaced by Bill's practiced smile as he rose to deliver his closing statement. He spoke of tradition, of lineage, of the importance of a stable name in a world that devoured children in the glare of fame and fortune. He promised to give Beth everything she needed: resources, education, influence, painting himself as the savior of a girl born into chaos. And then, as the jury filed out to deliberate, Hope found herself once again suspended in that torturous limbo where every second stretched into an eternity. Ridge clasped her hand and murmured, "No matter what happens, you did everything you could." Steffy pressed a reassuring kiss to Liam's forehead on the screen. Brooke Logan, seated in the gallery, fought back tears behind her sunglasses, her presence a reminder that the Logan clan watched with bated breath. 36 hours later, the jury returned. The judge's gavel pounded thrice, once for the custody ruling, once for the corporate agreement, once for the fate of a family teetering on the edge, before she spoke the words that would reshape their lives. Custody of Beth Spencer Logan is awarded jointly to Hope Logan Spencer and William Spencer Jr., with primary residence to be determined by mutual agreement. In addition, Ms. Logan Spencer will transfer 25% ownership of Hope for the future to Forester Creations as part of this settlement. Silence fell like a suffocating blanket. Hope's breath caught as she realized the terms were both victory and defeat. Her daughter would remain in her care, but Bill would share in her life and her company, his influence a constant reminder of the compromise that had saved her from total loss. Bill allowed himself a satisfied grin, shaking hands with his lawyers as the cameras erupted. Ridge, though triumphant that Hope had secured custody, turned to face the assembled press with a stiff smile, the weight of relinquished shares heavy on his shoulders. Hope, tears streaming, clung to Liam's image on the screen as he mouthed, "Well done," his frail fingers raised in a thumbs up. In the days that followed, the headlines shouted of courtroom showdowns and boardroom betrayals, of alliances forged in desperation, of a custody verdict that cut like glass. At Forrester Creations, the newly negotiated partnership shifted office dynamics. Gus had to redraw the equity charts, Eric Forrester sketched new strategic plans, and Sally Spectra eyed the deal with calculating interest. Hope, exhausted but resolute, buried herself in design sketches, determined to prove that hope for the future would shine as never before under the combined banners of Spencer and Forrester, a symbol that, even in compromise, creativity and love could triumph. And every night, before Beth drifted off to sleep, Hope whispered a promise into her daughter's ear. That no matter who wielded shares or sat across courtroom tables, nothing would ever sever the bond between mother and child, that in the grand tapestry of legacy and power, the truest designs were those etched by the heart, and by the unbreakable promise to protect the ones we love.